A number of different vessels.
Breaking news, breaking news.
Also had a statement.
Ships collide, guys, join up.
From the RNLI. They say that 4 lifeboat crews have been called to an incident off the Lincolnshire coast this morning.
Breaking news, breaking news.
At 10:20 a.m., HM Coast Guard tasked Bridlington, Cleethorpes, Mablethorpe and Skegness lifeboats to support their response to 2 vessels that were reported to have been in collision with each other. Now, the lifeboats are saying, the RNLI are saying, that there were reports that a number of people had abandoned the vessels following the collision, and that there were fires on board both ships. At 11:40, Cleethorpes had stood down while Bridlington, Mablethorpe and Skegness continued to support
breaking news,
efforts.
like, subscribe.
They are saying that the incident is ongoing with the RNLI and HM Coast Guard working together. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Shaman Freeman-Powell, who's been looking at this story for us. Shaman, still very basic information that's getting to us, but enormous concern given the size of both of these vessels and the fact that one of them is registered as a chemical and oil tanker.
Absolutely. This seems to be a very significant incident that is currently developing after a cargo ship and an oil tanker.
How the hell did these boats collide, man?
In the North Sea. It has now triggered an emergency rescue mission after reports that a number of people had abandoned both vessels. And as you say, the alarm was raised just before 10 to 10 this morning after reports that a chemical oil tanker and a cargo ship have reported to have collided in the North Sea just off the coast of East Yorkshire. Now, there is currently a rescue mission underway with helicopter and lifeboats providing an emergency response. As you say, this is a developing story, but we do have statements from HM Coast Guard, which says that HM Coast Guard is currently coordinating the emergency response to the reports of the collision between the tanker and the cargo vessel. It continues saying that a Coast Guard rescue helicopter from Humberside was called, alongside lifeboats from Skegness, Bridlington, Mablethorpe and Cleethorpes, adding that HM Coast Guard fixed-wing aircraft and nearby vessels with firefighting capability is also there, and that the incident remains ongoing. We also had that statement from RNLI, who are helping with this rescue mission as well. It says that 4 lifeboat crews were called to the incident off the Lincolnshire coast this morning. It adds that at around 20 past 10 this morning, HM Coast Guard tasked Bridlington, Cleethorpes, Mablethorpe and Skegness lifeboats to support their response to the 2 vessels that were reported to have collided with each other. It adds that there were reports that a number of people had abandoned the vessel following a collision, and that confirming that there were fires on both ships. And as you say, this is a developing story.
What a mess! What a mess!
Our eyes on this, watching very closely to see.
Well, is this the second safest mode of travel? Because I know they say flying, you're better off flying than driving. Is boats the second safest mode of travel now? What's up, guys? Good morning. Early with the craziness.
Devastating impacts, devastating environmental consequences due to oil spills.
Shaman, thanks very much for that. Let's just bring you some latest images that we can bring you now.
Twitter down. What's wrong with Twitter?
From North Yorkshire weather updates. And these just show exactly the scale of what has happened out there in the North Sea. An absolutely enormous plume of black smoke billowing
Facebook,
above these vessels. What looks to be like something in the water. I can't quite make it out. It could be lifeboats. It could be some of the cargo from the vessels, but you can see the flames, you can see plumes and plumes of smoke rising up into the sky. It looks to be a relatively clear day. This vessel is a fair distance away, which will raise a number of questions as to how on earth this collision was able to happen between these 2 very, very large vessels.
So I'm being told that the North Sea is a very, very dangerous, treacherous place. Let me take a look here. The North Sea is located between Great Britain and the northwestern European mainland, boarding countries like Norway, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and the United Kingdom. It's considered dangerous primarily due to its shallow depth, strong currents, frequent storms, and large waves that can quickly build up in bad weather, particularly during winter when fog is common. So they got shallow depth. The relatively shallow waters mean that waves become very large quickly when storms hit, making navigation difficult for ships. Strong currents. Due to its shallowness and shape, the North Sea experiences strong currents that can pull ships off course. Severe weather. The region is prone to sudden and intense storms, particularly during the winter months with high winds and heavy rain. Foggy conditions. Foggy can significantly reduce visibility, adding another layer of danger for shipping. Coastal areas bordering the North Sea are vulnerable to storm surges, which can cause flooding due to rising water levels during storms. Wow.
The other ship to get out the way or take action to avoid that collision. As a result, most collisions end up in court or arbitration. They're actually very, very unusual. Probably 1% of cases, the accident is attributed to one vessel. Generally speaking, it might be 90%, 10% blame, or it could be even 50-50. Reading between the lines in this case, if that tanker was remaining at anchor, as has been reported, then obviously she's got very limited liability. There's not a lot you can do apart from picking up the anchor, which can take almost up to an hour to do, by which time the apparent collision is probably well and truly past.
Well,
so
that's really interesting.
We have to ask the question.
No, continue,
Sorry?
David.
Yeah, what we have to ask is what was happening on the container feeder ship, the So Long. What type of bridge lookout was on board? As you say, it was during the daylight. I believe the visibility was reasonable. They should have seen the ship and managed to take action well and truly beforehand. Possibilities may include they had some sort of engine failure or steering failure, but we just don't know, and at the moment it's far too early to speculate.
And your point that about the oil tanker being at anchor, and the fact that it can take an enormously long time to get the anchor up and to get this vessel motoring again, they potentially couldn't really have done anything about it. I mean, some people would say, well, hang on, why didn't one just get out of the way? But your point is that even if this tanker knew this cargo ship was on a direct course for it, it may not have been able to get out of the way at all.
Exactly. I mean, let's assume that it takes 1 hour to lift the anchor off the tanker. I'm guessing the So Long would probably be traveling around 15 knots. So 1 hour away, the So Long would be 15 miles distance from the oil tanker. At that stage, there would be no risk of collision. You would expect the ship to sort of maybe alter course 3 or 4 miles away from the oil tanker. So it's only going to be 3 or 4 miles away that the risk of collision then becomes apparent. The oil tanker would have been keeping or should have been keeping a lookout as well. And when it was apparent that the So Long wasn't getting out of the way, steps should have been taken on the oil tanker to communicate with the So Long. They would have identified the ship on the AIS system. They would know the name of the ship. They would know where its destination was, where it come from. They could have called it up on the VHF and asked what they were doing, or told them to get out the way. We're at anchor here. So perhaps that was done. Perhaps it wasn't done. We just don't know.
You mentioned the AIS system. Just tell us a little bit more about that. What is it?
Yeah, it's an automatic identification system. All ships, apart from warships, have this on board. And basically, when you've got your ship on your radar, you can identify that vessel by name, the type of ship, its destination, and its cargo.
And you mentioned visibility. It was daylight. I guess you've had a look at some of the charts. Did you think visibility was pretty good? How close would these vessels have been, do you think, before they could see each other?
Well, I don't know the exact situation regarding visibility, but I'm assuming it was quite good. Certainly up here in Edinburgh, it was reasonable this morning. I would imagine the visibility would be in the region of 10 miles.
Crazy.
They should have been able to see each other visually 10 miles away. But on radar, 24 miles.
Wow, so they should very much have known about each other's presence. And what would the legislation be, the rules and regulations about having a bridge lookout? Because as you say, if something does go wrong with all...
Crazy morning. Make sure you guys help me out with the like button and the share. So, yeah, 32 casualties in the North Sea collision. A cargo vessel collided about 10 miles off the coast of East Yorkshire. Lifeboats and Coast Guard helicopter were called to the collision in the Humber estuary on Monday morning. Believed to involve a U.S. flag tanker called MV Stena Immaculate and Rotterdam-bound cargo vessel Solong. They're saying 32 casualties so far. Wow.
Of electronics available to each ship to try and help avoid these situations in the first place.
And these were two pretty substantial ships, aren't they? 140 metres long, 183 metres long. But how many people roughly would be likely to be on board these? Because my understanding is, although they're enormous vessels, the crews themselves can often be quite sparse.
Yeah, as far as the tanker is concerned, I would probably estimate around 22 or thereabouts. On the container ship, probably less, maybe 16 to 18.
But a lot of people, clearly, who we are concerned for their safety, given the images that we can see of this ferocious fire on board and the reports from the RNLI that a number of people had abandoned the vessels. We're sort of moving into the realms of speculation here, but if the tanker knew this boat was coming towards it and couldn't move out of the way quick enough, would they have had enough time to launch the life rafts? What kind of safety procedures and drills would have been happening?
Yeah, I don't think they would have considered abandoning ships straight away. Once it was aware that collision was imminent, then a general alarm would have been sounded, and the master of the tanker would have been in charge of his various emergency parties. And one party may have been ready to get the boat sorted out. The other party may have been ready to sort of set up fire hoses, collision blankets, whatever it may have been.
Abbott D donated $19.99 through Super Chat.
Drills, particularly fire drills.
Thank you for the updates.
A collision drill is very, very difficult to try and manufacture in sort of real time, if you like, because it's a fairly unusual event, thankfully. Although saying that, there's probably around between, 200 and 300 collisions every year at sea.
That's an astonishing number, isn't it? When you think of all of the anti-collision technology that exists, why do things go wrong?
It all boils down to the human element. We're all guilty of making a mistake and not following rules and regulations.
I'm not sure why people keep complaining about there's now 32 dead. That's what's being reported. 32 casualties. It's all over the internet and the news. Casualties. Oh, it says brought ashore. Oh yeah, casualties have been brought ashore. Let me see. Shit, now I'm confused myself. Ship collide. Casualty. Well, they're saying casualties. Casualties brought ashore. First carrier brought ashore, but the condition was not immediately clear. All right, maybe I'll change the title then. Fuck, I don't even know what that means anymore. 30 casualties after oil tanker. So 32 casualties, but we don't know their condition. Yeah, because casualties could mean injury.
Are these good conditions for a rescue, which is now happening?
Yeah, it looks reasonable. I'd say both ships should have been well versed in abandoning ship drills, and they would know their boat. They would have taken the boats out on numerous occasions for exercises. So I don't know what stage the fires started. I don't know where the fires are, whether it's within the cargo or whether it's from the engine rooms.
I mean, it looks, David, I mean, just looking at the images, it looks like the whole thing's gone up.
Yeah.
Jesus Louise.
It does, yes. I don't know what the other vessel I can see to the right of the screen is. I don't know if it's a rescue vessel or not, perhaps a firefighting tug.
We can see, David. I mean, the images are a little bit difficult to see on the small screen in front of me, but we can see things in the water there. Do you think that's the cargo? Do you think those are the shipping containers, or do you think they are life rafts?
I honestly can't see from here.
Yeah, it's difficult to see. David, the other vessels that we saw on the marine traffic site rush into the area. This does happen, doesn't it? When somebody gets into difficulty out at sea, other vessels will come to their aid. But when you look at the ferocity of this vessel that's on fire, nearby vessels with firefighting capability, they're unlikely to be getting involved close up, aren't they?
The British.
Unless it's a designated firefighting tug, some of the big salvage tugs are equipped to get very close and personal with these ships. Depends on the cargoes involved. Are the cargoes of an explosive nature? It looks unlikely because I think by now, if that is cargo that's on fire, it would have exploded by now. So there are ways of getting ships or firefighting tugs up close to assist on putting this fire out.
The fact that it happened off the coast, not a million miles from Grimsby, a big established port, will that help? That they'll be able, it's happened very close to an area with a lot of expertise.
Yeah, it should do. Not just off the coast of England, but also off the coast of Scandinavia as well. I mean, they've got some of the biggest salvage tugs available. So I would be very surprised if some vessels from Scandinavia aren't going to the assistance of this incident as well.
And given that we don't know what the cargo is, but it's a chemical and oil tanker, once this blazes out, the environmental impact will also be an enormous concern. How much are they able to do now in these early stages when this incident's just underway to try and mitigate any environmental disaster?
Yeah, really, at this stage, nothing. They will be able to. The Coast Guard
Trump again?
Will be in touch with the pollution experts, and they will eventually try and get booms out to try and boom the oil off, skim the oil off from the surface. It may be a case that majority of the oil cargo does go up in smoke, in which case it doesn't help the environmental impact in the atmosphere, but it certainly would help in the water.
They're saying the oil tanker is named Stena Immaculate and is sailing under a U.S. flag, while the cargo ship is named Schlong, and is Portuguese flagged, according to the marinetraffic.com. The website also described the U.S. flagged vessel as being oil/chemical tanker. The Schlong had been due to travel to Rotterdam in the Netherlands after departing from Grangemouth in Scotland this morning, according to Marine Traffic. Oh, man, what a mess. What a mess. 2025, everything's colliding, crashing. This is not the first one either. Wasn't there some ships earlier this year that crashed as well? 2 ships collided or something? Military? Wasn't it some military ships? What a mess.
Stena Immaculate was at anchor, it could have taken up for an hour for it to get its anchor up and get moving, given the size of the vehicle, the vessel. So it may not have been able to get out the way, despite the fact it may well have known that the Solang was coming towards it. A lot of questions about why these two ships were not talking to each other, what kind of communications were going on between the two of them, and this automatic identification system, which both should have had, which should have alerted both ships to the fact that they were on a collision course. Him pointing out that the visibility this morning, with the weather conditions being what they were, potentially as much as 10 miles, and that they should have been able to see each other on radar as far as 24 miles away, and that both ships should have had lookouts on board. Wow. So they should have been able to see each other. Let's just return to what we know so far. Just to remind you of this breaking news, the Coast Guard coordinating an emergency response after an oil tanker and a cargo vessel collided off the coast of East Yorkshire, with reports that they did catch fire. A helicopter and lifeboats are providing emergency response to the incident, as well as a fixed-wing aircraft, which remains ongoing. It's around 10 miles off the coast, near Hull, so not a very far distance from the port of Grimsby. 4 lifeboat crews have been called to the incident from Bridlington, Cleethorpes, Mablethorpe and Skegness. And these are the images which show marine traffic in the area. And this shows the moment of collision. The Stena Immaculate, apparently at anchor, and the Solang, a container ship, travelling from Grangemouth in Scotland yesterday, heading south to Rotterdam, in collision with it. Looking at these images on the right from North Yorkshire weather updates of the huge plume of smoke and flames after this collision. And you can see on the left from the marine traffic site other vessels then rushing to the aid of those on board. The RNLI reporting that a number of people had abandoned the vessels following the collision, and that there were fires on both ships. Just talking to David McFarlane there, the independent.
So they're saying more than 30 casualties have been brought ashore, excuse me, after a cargo vessel collided with an oil tanker in the North Sea. Some crew members are yet to be accounted for, with both vessels ablaze off the coast of Yorkshire. A Coast Guard helicopter and other aircraft were deployed alongside lifeboats from Skegness. What's that? Skegness, Bridlington, Mablethorpe, and Cleethorpes to attend the scene. Skegness. Let's see what else. A number of people had abandoned ship, with both ablaze, and the incident is ongoing. Martin Boyers, chief executive of the Port Grimsby East, said 32 casualties had been brought ashore aboard a harbor pilot vessel. Entire crew of tanker. Okay. Well, it must be in a different time zone over there.
At 9:48 this morning, they are reminding us that a Coast Guard rescue helicopter from Humberside was called, alongside lifeboats from Skegness, Bridlington, Mablethorpes and Cleethorpes, and an HM Coast Guard fixed-wing aircraft. Nearby vessels with firefighting capability as well. The incident is, of course, ongoing. Let's bring in Sky's Shaman Freeman-Powell, just gathering all this information from lots of different sources, aren't we, Shaman? But it appears to be a serious incident.
Yeah, that's right. This is a developing story, but we are seeing, aren't we, those dramatic and chaotic scenes off the North Sea, off the coast of East Yorkshire, near Hull, and not far off the coast of Grimsby. From these images, it does appear that both of these vessels are seemingly on fire. We can see there, can't we, the thick plumes of smoke visible in these images. Now, this is a significant incident after a cargo ship and an oil tanker collided in the North Sea. The alarm was raised just before 10 to 10 this morning. Reports that the oil tanker had collided with a cargo ship. As you say, we are now getting information coming in. We still don't know how many people were on those vessels, but we have seen reports that there were people abandoning both vessels, and we can see in those images, can't we, just just how bad that fire looks. You can see thick plumes of smoke there in those pictures. Now, we've also seen images from the marine traffic site. It shows the two vessels colliding. You can see in those images that one of the vessels was travelling from north to south. That's the container ship, the So Long under the flag of Madeira, travelling from Rotterdam. It seems to be colliding with the Stena Immaculate. That's the vessel under the US flag, which was travelling from Greece via the UK before colliding. We can also see from those marine traffic images that other vessels had tried to get to the scene. Can assume to try and help. We've also had statements from the RNLI saying that 4 lifeboat crews were called to the incident off the Lincolnshire coast this morning. It added that around 10:20 this morning, HM Coast Guard tasked Bridlington, Cleethorpes, Mablethorpe and Skegness lifeboats to support their response to the two vessels that reported to have been in collision with each other. It adds that there were reports that a number of people had abandoned the vessels following the collision and confirming that there were fires on both ships. It added, though, that by around 20 to 12, Cleethorpes had been stood down while Bridlington, Mablethorpe and Skegness continued to support the search and the...
Let's see what they got here, too. Looks like they're live on scene. Skag.
But he said it's too far out to sea, about 10 miles, but we've seen the vessels bringing him in, and that they must have sent a mayday out. Earlier on GB News we did hear the Coast Guard alerting people of what had happened as well, and asking anyone nearby to give assistance, and other cargoes and ships in the area to stay away. We know that flames are still burning, of course, with an oil tanker being involved. It's not known how long these flames will burn and what in fact the clean-up effort involved will be. We know that the So Long approach from the north of a speed of 16 knots, around 20 miles an hour, while en route from the Scottish port of Grangemouth to Rotterdam, and that data has been seen from the ship tracking site Marine Traffic. It seemed that that ship was moving and the other was stationary when this collision happened. It's not yet known what caused the collision. We do know that evidence has been gathered and next steps are being determined following this collision. That's what marine inspectors say. And the UK Coast Guard has said it's assessing the likely counter-pollution response that could be required following this collision. They said the incident remains ongoing. An assessment of the likely counter-pollution response required has been enacted. And as we have more information on this news story, we will bring it to you.
Of that horrific crash between an oil tanker and a cargo vessel, bringing us up to date there. Now, there's plenty more coming up on today's show, but before that, Anna, thank you very much. But before that, we have Martin Daubney, who is up at 3 o'clock, always with a cracking show. Martin, live in the studio, this studio for once. What you got?
Oh, Mamma Mia.
That appear to seem to be the most logical explanation at this very early stage.
I don't think it'd be appropriate to point a finger at this given time, but as some of the experts have pointed to, that there are many systems on board these vessels that give early warning, early indications of vessels in the vicinity, and obviously systems that actually point out and raise alarms when collisions could be happening at this given time. Given the fact that one of these vessels was anchored, you bring into consideration how this could have happened and the right of way on board the waterway.
And does that shift the responsibility for those of us who don't understand about what's happening at sea? If someone is anchored, does it mean that the responsibility for the vessel that's moving is greater? That it's more under the onus is under them to move around the vessel that's anchored?
Exactly that. I think there's a position where an anchored vessel. Obviously, you've seen that there are other vessels.
Yeah, it's an oil tanker. One's labeled as an One's labeled as an oil tanker, and the other one's oil/chemical, and the other one's a cargo ship. And so they've collided. Now, when I started this, I saw casualties. I thought it meant deaths, but I learned last night casualties could just mean injury, because of the other story that we covered. And so when I was, because I wasn't even home, I rushed to the house to cover the story because I have other things going on, but I rushed to come back and cover the story for a bit. And I saw casualties, and I'm thinking, oh, dead people. So I thought, wow, 32 dead. No, but they're saying 32 casualties as of an injured, and they were being brought ashore. And there's some people, they said, according to this article, they said some people are unaccounted for. And so who knows? Who knows, if there's anybody actually dead, or the unaccounted people for, or the people that are inside the boat, did they make it out? The numbers, when stories first break out, you don't really know the exact numbers until everything kind of clears. So, but massive, crazy situation this morning. I mean, one of these broadcaster people were saying they should have been able to see each other from like 20 something miles away. How does this happen? Was it the weather? Was something not functioning right? And then it would have been on both sides. Because if at least one saw the other, at least one can move, or vice versa. But no. Boom. Straight into each other. What is going on? 2025, supposed to be the most technically advanced ever. The hell's going on?
Those sort of information on that time. I think one of your colleagues was currently reporting the total amount of tonnage, but you can expect into sort of six figures in terms of capability on board. We don't know whether this vessel was laden or ballast at the time, but you'd assume that there was cargo on board to cause this kind of damage and this kind of detriment that we're seeing.
And you said potentially for military assets. So is the supposition that this vessel was presumably due to move into Grimsby? That is the closest port. And from there, where would this fuel be going?
Yeah, and it's quite normal that the vessels would anchor offshore locations, whether they're waiting for orders, they're waiting for further instructions. So that is pretty standard practice in terms of coastal and international waters, that the vessels would remain anchored as they're waiting for updates of either berth calls or port calls or further orders offshore.
Well, that was Joshua Hutchinson, who is Managing Director of Risk at Ambry. They're, of course, a maritime security company, speaking to my colleague Jane Saker a short while ago with his insight into what may well have taken place here at the moment. As Joshua was saying, there's very hard to work out exactly how this could have happened when one ship is at anchor, stationary, just off the coast of Hull, and another ship collides with it. Because of all the technological facilities and equipment that both of these vessels have, it's just, as Joshua was suggesting there, it's not really something that should be happening. Now, let's bring in our correspondent, Shaman Freeman-Powell, who can just update us on the very latest as we understand it right now. And Shaman, look, a few hours on now from the news of this breaking. Of course, this incident happened at 10 to 10 this morning. What is the latest as we understand it in terms of the casualties?
Yes, well, the latest update, Kamali, is that there are around 32 casualties who have been rescued. We are still waiting on the condition of those casualties. We don't yet know whether or not they have sustained any injuries, but we do know 32 casualties have been brought in. Of those, 13 were brought in first, followed by 10 casualties brought in on a pilot boat operated by Associated British Ports, and then a third vessel brought in 9 more. We spoke, didn't we, to Martin Boyers, the chief executive of the Port of Grimsby East, who said that as far as he could tell, all 32 of those casualties were alive and well, but we've yet to have that officially confirmed. But he also said, Martin Boyers, the chief exec of the Port of Grimsby East, said a line of ambulances were waiting to take them to the Princess Diana Hospital, adding that as far as he was aware, all 32 of those were alive. But these images, Kamali, which we're looking at right now, are shocking, aren't they? We can see thick plumes of smoke visible in these images. This collision has caused what's been described as a massive fire.
And apparently that plane that we covered yesterday, they're saying there was 5 people on board. And again, that's where I learned about this wording casualty yesterday. Because they said it was mass casualty, and some people were in the comments like they thought that, that means dead. I thought it meant dead too. But apparently if you're if you're injured, you're considered a casualty. I'm like, damn, I thought a casualty, you're a goner. Apparently not, if he's just injured. So somehow last night, or yesterday evening, whatever, that plane that we covered that was up in flames, that like boom, landed in cars, the whole shit was on fire. They took 5 people to the hospital. I don't know what their condition is today. I don't know how critical they were, but I'm like, yo, what? I was thinking there's no way somebody would survive that.
Just 32 casualties who have been brought to shore, as Shaman was saying. It is reported
DNS Ultra donated $5 through Super Chat. You are my first place to check for current events. Thanks for always bringing these things to us.
And he gave us his thoughts.
Thank you, DNS. Appreciate that. Thank you for the 5. Good morning.
As far as I can see
casualty
from
versus
the
fatality.
tracking, the Solong, the vessel going from Grangemouth down to Rotterdam, has collided with a stationary tanker. It's pretty bang to rights as far as I can see.
Would it seem as well from you, Chris, hugely unusual for a stationary tanker to have something crash into it in this case? Because surely everyone in the area would know that that tanker was stationary.
Well, it's not quite stationary, of course. It's swinging at anchor, but unless the Solong has had a mechanical failure, and it doesn't look like it has because it's proceeding in a straight line, you have to say, as your previous speaker said, with all the radar, GPS and AIS indicators, and presumably somebody standing on the bridge, it shouldn't happen at all. So it seems highly negligent at first sight that tanker should be hit by a passing vessel. Looking at the conditions, there doesn't seem to be a visibility problem, although there were some fog and mist around earlier this morning. It's a well-known anchorage, so again, if you're transiting through it, you're going to keep a good lookout. The tanker itself, which looks like it's got aviation fuel in to me, it's probably going to be a complete write-off. And I don't know, I can't tell from the pictures whether the container cargo ship is actually still stuck in the side of it. I certainly haven't seen it drift clear. So both those ships look to be constructed write-offs.
You talk about the radar that these ships will have on them, so they'll be able to recognise other vessels in the area. Martin talked to us a little bit about the autopilot that these ships have on them as well. Is that something that will be factoring into the investigation, whether or not the autopilot was engaged at this point?
The computers, the AI.
I've had an experience in the Gulf where I've had a tanker come straight at me where there was no one on the bridge. It was an autopilot, and we had to get out of the way pretty quickly. So these things do happen, but it takes quite a lot of human error to make this happen.
There are some reports coming in, of course, of those who were taken into shore because of it was the Solange that has crashed into the Stena Immaculate. That ship was at anchor. You say it will have been sort of moving around slightly, but those people on board there as well, will they have been aware that this ship was bearing down on them? There would have been warnings on their ship too.
No, not necessarily. If people were working around the ship, not expecting, obviously, to be hit, you won't have a lookout on the bridge necessarily. But if you think about it, there's not much you can do if you do see it looming at.
Were the Epstein files on the ship? What happened?
You cut your cable pretty quickly. You're not going to be able to get out of the way, particularly if your engines aren't actually running.
Where is the Epstein files, by the way? I saw somebody's comment too in the chat. They said that Margaret, I lost your comment, but I remember what you said about. You said, I think it was that the U.S. ship was anchored and the other one hit into the U.S. ship, or the U.S. flagged ship, I should say. Oh, man, what a crazy morning. Hopefully everybody's okay. It seems like the 30-something casualties are alive. One of the articles said it was somebody unaccounted for. It really is crazy to see all this stuff happening almost every day. It's like something... So the Stena Immaculate, was it, let's see, shows the tanker in red and the cargo ship in green before collision. So that shit hit it right from the side, I guess. Moving images on the tracking site suggest the oil tanker had remained stationary, like Margaret said, as the schlong headed straight towards it before the collision. Wow.
Matt there at about 10 to 10 this morning. The Stena Immaculate, which was at anchor, partially loaded, we are told by shipping data, was just outside of port, waiting to leave port. It was struck by the Salon, which had been transiting from the Scottish port of Grangemouth to Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Now, at the time of this incident, just at 10 to 10 in the morning, the conditions were described visibility-wise as good. As we can see from the pictures, there is a haze in there, whether that's smoke or the fog and mist that was described by Chris Parry and Martin Boyers, who's chief exec of Grimsby East. It's not clear, but 32 casualties have been taken ashore, according to Martin Boyers. All were alive, as far as he can see. We'll have more at the top of the next hour.
What a morning. What a morning, what a morning. Oh, they got a map of it right here too, a video map of what happened. There's the Schlong coming in. The Immaculate's just stationary. Coming in from a long way on a direct course. There it is. Boom. Wow, what a mess, man. What a mess. Top off the morning to you. Oh, I guess we'll see what happens with this. We'll kind of keep an eye. So far, at least, it seems like no reported deaths. But, you know, some people unaccounted for. So hopefully they find those people. Wasn't a lot of people. Somebody said, how many people were on the ship? So like 20-something on one side, 20 on the other? 20-something? Not a whole lot of people on each side. North Sea said, Port Chief says 32 people brought ashore after ship collides and catch on fire. Okay. Not so immaculate anymore. They thought the Titanic was unsinkable. The unsinkable ship. It's at the bottom of the ocean. Let's see what else they have. Anything else on line? Ships collide. Of course, everybody on Twitter posts the same couple of seconds clip. Robots. All right. Listen to the Coast Guard warning that the Jet A1 fuel is on fire after the oil tanker and cargo vessel collide. Volcaholic, let's see.
Solong has collided with tanker Stena Immaculate in the outer anchorage. Both vessels are abandoning. Vessels who have firefighting equipment or who can assist with search and rescue, contact Humber Coast Guard on channel 16. Vessel Stena Immaculate is carrying Jet A1 fuel, which is on fire and in the water. Request vessels remain at a safe distance. Humber Coast Guard coordinating, date time group 101000 UTC. This is Humber Coast Guard.
Wow.
Solong has collided with tanker Stena Immaculate in the outer.
So the Stena Immaculate, here's the ship details. Layla was sending it. The Stena Immaculate is the chemical/oil products tanker. Okay. The Stena Immaculate is that. And then the Schlong is the container ship. What it says here, container ship. Crazy, 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 crazy.
Now, the Coast Guard have issued a statement, as you would imagine, saying currently we are coordinating an emergency response to reports of a collision between a tanker and a cargo vessel off the coast of East Yorkshire. They say the alarm was raised at 9:48 and the incident remains ongoing. Well, Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, has also been on social media to say that she is concerned to hear of the collision in the North Sea and that she is liaising with officials and the Coast Guard as the situation develops. So Alexander goes on to say, I want to thank all emergency service workers involved for their continued efforts in responding to the incident. Well, the Marine Accident Investigation Branch have sent investigators to the scene and issued a statement also in the last hour or so, saying that they've deployed a team to Grimsby following the collision of the Portuguese-registered container ship Solong and the US-registered oil tanker Stena Immaculate, which collided this morning. They say our team of inspectors and support staff are gathering evidence and undertaking a preliminary assessment of the accident to determine our next steps. All right, well, let's speak to Melanie On, who's the MP for Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, the area on land just off the coast where this incident happened. Melanie On, good afternoon to you and thank you for joining us. Have you been briefed as to the current situation, specifically in terms of casualties?
At the moment, the information that I've received has been coming through the media. It is a rapidly evolving situation. I know I've been in touch with ministerial teams. I'm waiting for calls back from them once they've been able to ascertain exactly the current status and that they've got some accurate information that they can talk to me about.
And Melanie, you said you...
Okay, so a couple minutes ago, it says all crew confirmed alive on burning North Sea tanker, ship owner says. All of the crew on board a burning oil tanker in the North Sea are confirmed alive, the Swedish ship owner said after the collision with a cargo ship on Monday. The U.S. flag Stena Immaculate chemical tanker was involved in a collision with a container ship off the British coast. It's partially loaded with cargo. Shipping data showed it was not clear if there was any fuel leak from the collision. All right. Ship insurer Skold of Norway would only confirm that the Stena Immaculate was covered with it for protection and indemnity, a segment of insurance that covers environmental damage and crew injuries or fatalities. Might not be covered under insurance. They say it covers, it's with protection and indemnity, a segment of insurance that covers environmental damage and crews and injuries or fatalities. Schlong's manager, Hamburg-based Ernest Rust, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Oh, shit. So the Stena Immaculate seems like maybe it only has insurance for environmental damage or crew injuries or fatalities. So they might not be covered for the ship. They ain't trying to pay all that money. But I don't know. I don't think it was the Stena's fault though, right? It was the other, it seemed like to be the other one's fault. Let me see the other ship. I think it was Schlong's fault, right? Schlong. They said the Schlong. Yeah, the Schlong was the one that messed up. So does the Schlong have to cover the Immaculate? Because I wonder if it works like car insurance. Like, who was at fault? So we got to find out about the Schlong's insurance. Okay, BBC reported that all crew on the Stena Immaculate are accounted for and safe. So we know the Stena, they're safe. And this other one, which one was that? The other one was... Okay.
Melanie, I presume that there are procedures in place for exactly this sort of thing. Will you be asking for extra resources to be sent to the area if, in fact, this is the beginning of a significant spill of fuel into the sea?
climate
Well,
change.
I think we should take everything one step at a time and establish exactly how serious the situation is. But of course, if we don't have the necessary resources to be able to manage all of the different elements that are coming and evolving through the course of this situation, then yes, I will be asking for additional resources to support the efforts in securing the vessels, containing any fires that are on board, because I understand that there are still fires taking place, making sure that everybody who was on board and involved in the rescue is safe back on shore, but then also tackling anything to do with the environmental damage that may have occurred as a result of it.
Yeah, the statement from the shipping company Crowley, the Stena Immaculate is owned by, says that fuel was reported released, crew abandoned vessel following multiple explosions. That is coming from Crowley, as I say, who own the Stena Immaculate. Melanie, why don't you talk to us a little bit about
Mafio donated $7 Australian dollars and 99 cents through Super Chat. Hey dude, your elected president caused this. Keep him away from Australia.
I knew they were going to come on Trump, man. I knew Trump was going to catch fire. Not fire, but heat. But man, I guess you could say fire for this. Trump.
Immingham is the largest port by tonnage in the whole country, so that indicates just how much we have coming in and going out of that port. We have about 34,000 vessel crossings coming into the Humber every single year, and it's a whole mix of different things. Some of it is cargo, some of it is fuel, as we've seen in this situation, but also we have the remainder of some fishing vessels, some trawlers, and also the crew transfer vessels and the safety and environment vessels as well that are conducting marine environment surveys, and also the pilot boats that are just checking on general safety and security along the Humber.
Okay, Melanie, who is the MP for Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes. We do appreciate your time, and perhaps we'll speak again in the next few days, Melanie, because this is a situation that's going to develop. Thanks very much for being with us. All right, it was Melanie speaking to us there. I just want to bring you another bit of news that we've had come into us from Crowley. That's the shipping firm that owns the Stena Immaculate. They have said that all mariners on board that ship are safe and fully accounted for following that collision there. The fuel has been released by the Stena Immaculate. The crew abandoned the vessel and there were multiple explosions. We're going to get some more detail about what happened on that ship in the moments after that incident. But for now, we can listen to the message to the Coast Guard that was broadcast to other ships in the vicinity of all of this, asking for them to help.
5-3 degrees, 4.4.20 minutes north. I say again, 5-3 degrees, 4.4.20 minutes north. 0 degrees, 23.75 minutes east. So Long has collided with tanker Stena Immaculate in the outer anchorage. Both vessels are abandoning. Vessels who have firefighting equipment or who can assist with search and rescue, contact Humber Coast Guard on channel 16. Vessel Stena Immaculate is carrying Jet A1 fuel, which is on fire and in the water. Request vessels remain at a safe distance. Humber Coast Guard coordinating, date time group 101000 UTC. This is Humber Coast Guard.
Well, listening there to the Coast Guard's appeal for help from vessels in the area off the coast of East Yorkshire following that collision. The Coast Guard saying in that message that the So Long has collided with the outer anchorage of the Stena Immaculate. Both vessels are abandoning, the Coast Guard said in that message, appealing for anyone with firefighting equipment in the vicinity to get there and try and help. The Coast Guard, they're saying that A1 jet fuel was on board the Stena Immaculate and that is on fire and in the water. So the fuel from the Stena Immaculate has spilled. Let's bring in now Rob Spray, who's a conservation diver, for his perspective on all of this. Rob, thanks for being with us. And that is the confirmation there. We've had it coming from Crowley, who run the Stena Immaculate, and also we can hear it there from the Coast Guard that ship was carrying A1 jet fuel, and that fuel is now in the water. What is the concern from here about that fuel being in the sea?
I think I'm not a petrochemical specialist, but I guess that's up the lighter end of the fuels and the oils that could be carried. So it's liable to stay on the surface, and being more volatile, more of it'll burn off. My concern would be stuff that is lost into the water and spreads from there. It looks like at the moment we've got an environmental airborne catastrophe and hazard, and the wind will affect where that makes landfall. We might be lucky, we might not. And at the same time, there'll be plenty of sort of by-pollution particulates dropping into the water, and they could be manifesting for years to come, literally. And it takes a very long time for the products of huge ships like this to disperse.
Rob, before we move on to sort of the next stage of this, let's just drill down into what you mentioned then about this type of fuel, A1 jet fuel, and you described it as being the lighter end of the fuel, of course, as opposed to something like crude, which would be a much thicker, heavier substance. How does that change then the response, if it changes it at all, Rob?
I think you're asking me for a massive overreach. I'm not a spill specialist, but I'd guess it's more like kerosene and paraffin. So it's a light, thin fuel, and rather than coming ashore in black slicks, that would likely float on the surface and is prone to burning. So on a scale of sort of 1 to terrible, it's not the worst it could be, because as a child I remembered having clods of sort of spilt black crude oil on the beach for years after things like the sort of Torrey Canyon and whatever. This is a disaster. This is an environmental nightmare, but it's up the lighter end of that, so perhaps the effects will be shorter-lived. There'll still be a lot of oils and other materials in those ships. There's probably the fuel oils that they carry and run on themselves. So the jet fuel may not be the thing we see coming ashore for years.
Rob, I do appreciate you reaching out into sort of your knowledge space there. It's very useful to kind of understand.
All right, so it seems like people are at least safe. I don't know about the other tanker, I'm not sure, but it seems like no fatalities, I should say, mentioned so far. JD Vance memes, I saw a bunch yesterday. It was pretty funny. Twitter's acting up this morning. I think it's down. I don't know. It's not really working on my browser. I think it's working on the phone. Twitter's been really weird this morning. X. JD Vance. JD Vance. I don't know. Yeah. X is acting up. It's not even really like loading stuff for me. But yeah, I did see a bunch of stuff on there. Yeah, I guess the situation is kind of, let me check for any kind of final other updates. Very lucky. This could have been worse. Luckily, I guess there was a bunch of vessels out there that could help for. It says supposedly some crew members are yet to be accounted for. I mean, that was earlier. Council leader worried of the collision's devastating impact. Very concerned about the consequences. Still ablaze. The entire crew of the tanker are safe and accounted for. The crew of more than 20 on the Stena Immaculate are safe. Okay. The tanker was on standby to supply fuel to U.S. military. Oh, man. reporter says he's not worried about deaths. He's more concerned about climate change. Wow. 30 casualties. Okay. I think we're caught up then. Fire has broken out on both ships.
Into the sea, so the problem of sewage collecting, and here we've got, is it 9,500 tons of a toxic petrochemical,
you heard 9 fatalities
just disappearing into the water. It's hard to see how it could pass immediately, and although it's massively diluted, it'll depend sort of where it strikes within the food chain, how much that affects us and sort of the other animals on the coast. I mean, we've seen in recent years sort of, slight toxins in starfish causing dog fatalities on beaches, and here we've got something on a much, much larger scale, which will be sort of contact toxic, perhaps affecting holiday beaches and sort of riverbeds, recreational fishing, and all the wildlife that lives underneath for years to come.
Rob, I know that you said that you and your team have not really dived that much off this coast, but we spoke to a local MP just before we spoke to you, actually. She talked about sort of the tidal element here. With this spill, with this rupture of oil, is it likely to stay in the area? What's the sort of spread of this, if you have any thought of how far this could spread?
Again, the effects will depend. The tide is one influence. There's weather as well. The tides, simply run repeatedly up and down the coast with the wind adding a kind of a drift element to it. So there's around a kind of a 6-hour cycle between high and low, and then it repeats. So depending on the strength of tide, that could easily stretch a slick like this 10, 15 miles in a tide cycle, and it'll keep spreading out.
Yeah, and the ships are still ablaze, as we understand it. You mentioned this being an airborne ecological disaster as well, and the impact of that is going to be felt by the wind direction, I guess, at this stage, as the fuel on board these ships continues to burn.
Definitely. Somebody's getting the benefit of all that carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and soot. If it were blowing onto land, that would be a bad day. If it's just sort of disappearing into the atmosphere, then you've just got a lot of particles getting sort of loaded up, and they'll be delivered to us in due course. It's just very hard to even quantify what that's going to do before you know sort of how the weather's going to treat it.
And of course, these things are still on fire. There's efforts being made to try and put the ships out. But you do raise the point, Rob, as well, that these ships could sink. And that, of course, would then add to the impact that they're going to have, and I guess the recovery effort as well, to make it far more difficult.
Oh, really? Twitter's not working for you?
Yeah. The North Sea is full of wrecks. Shipping is really, really accident prone, and we've had a few significant world wars going on in the North Sea. So, unless these are valuable, unless these land somewhere significant, then I don't know what would get done with them. I'd guess if they're out of the way of shipping, the insurance companies would very much want to lose them there, and it would be, so I guess, down to environmental policy and legal status whether they could be left. Historically, boats just go down and they get leveled, and anything much more than about 30 feet deep doesn't get touched much at all.
Wow. Okay, look, Rob, I really appreciate speaking to you this afternoon to get your expertise and insight into what has happened here. Rob Spray, conservation diver. Thanks very much, Rob, for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's speak to Alex Taylor-Brown, who's a correspondent for LBC, joining us from not far from where this incident happened.
What are we going to do? X is down. I can't pull up all the memes. I can't pull up all the All the people going crazy. I can't pull up the protests. Twitter is down, man. Oh, no. It's not loading up. Oh, it kind of loaded up a little now. What happened? Cyber attack? Maybe they're tired of Elon. Get rid of Elon Musk. No. How you guys doing today, man? Starting off the day with a crazy ship incident. Your X is up? DDoS. Stock market tanking. What's going on with crypto? My friend was telling me you should get into crypto, but I don't know, man. I don't trust crypto, but she's saying crypto's about to blow. Stock market. I saw that NVIDIA 5090 was having all kinds of problems. I don't plan to upgrade to that anyway, because the 4090 I feel like is more than enough for what I do. I rarely game, but I edit sometimes and stuff like that. But I don't even really do heavy editing anymore. Just the time doesn't equate to being worth it. I spend some time, but I don't go crazy with it anymore. Unless I'm going to do something special. NVIDIA 5090, I'm good. I think I'll wait for the next one. That's just allegedly burning starting fires and shit. I need to be able to walk away from my computer and know that's not going to burn this place down. 5090, $3,846 with a 1-star rating. Hell no. The PNY brand. $4,799. Hell nah. You got me fucked up. Where's the Temu shit? They said the cord is heating up to like 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Hell no. The power cable for that 5090. 300 degrees Fahrenheit, bro. I'm not leaving that shit in my house running. I leave my computer running for days sometimes. 5090's power connector reached 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Hell nah. Yeah, the Radeon looked nice. Isn't there a new one coming out? They said supposedly it outperforms 5090, I thought. Some new AMD RTX. I don't know. You've been doing crypto for years? It's been good? Long Island, New York on fire. Are they still on fire? I thought they didn't control the fire yet. Pennsylvania plane crash. Oh, I did see that. I gotta look at that again, McGinnis.
Of the haze, because of the conditions today, it's incredibly hard to see anything at all. So we can't actually see much, but we know that there is obviously emergency service activity going on down in Grimsby, sort of further on from the Humber estuary on the other side.
Up and
here.
Down, but enough to
We know that there were vessels sent as well with firefighting capability to water down, but as we can see those latest images showing flames and thick plumes of smoke as well. So yeah, a real big multi-agency response. It's obviously very dramatic, and the North Sea is such a busy shipping lane as well off the east coast of England here. So there will be obviously investigations into.
If anybody's watching that has been blocked, you can just send me an email at ikidmail@gmail.com, and if you can't, send it with your account link, your YouTube link. You go on your mobile app and you hit share after you click on your profile. Send me the link because it's a lot easier. If I try to type your name, it's going to be really hard, and I don't know. So just send the link and I'll block you. If you're anybody watching this blocked. I guess let's get to me. It seems like this incident is kind of like that's kind of it. I'd like to eventually hear the confirmation of numbers as far as if there's any fatalities. Somebody was saying they heard 9, but I haven't been able to see any confirmation about that. They said that everybody on the Stena ship, the Immaculate, is fine. I don't know about the other ship. 8 crypto miners at my house had a huge fire. Wow. Look up Nerd Miner 2 Crypto Lotto. Oh, they started an arson investigation, Layla? There was a South Carolina fire, and some lady, they found out that she started the fire. I forgot how many acres, like 2,000 acres or something was burned. And they found out the whole thing was because some lady, she got arrested.
Casualties there and helping and supporting that emergency service response as well.
They absolutely will. All right, Alex Taylor Brown from LBC. Do appreciate you talking with us this afternoon, Alex, and giving us some more insight into what's happened out there. Thanks very much, Alex. Good afternoon. Now, the owners of Stena Immaculate Crowley have said that there were explosions on board and the tank, which was carrying A1 jet fuel, has ruptured, releasing fuel into the water. Now, of course, there is now concern that there will be an ecological disaster unfolding as a result of this collision from this morning. And Greenpeace, the environmental activist group, have issued a statement in the last few minutes. Let me read it out to you. It says, "We are monitoring reports of a cargo vessel crashing into an oil tanker off the coast of Yorkshire. Both the high speed of the collision and the footage of the aftermath are cause for great concern. Greenpeace say right now our thoughts are with all those affected by the incident and the emergency services responding to the situation. At this stage, it is too early to assess the extent of any environmental damage, but the magnitude of any impact will depend on a number of factors, including the amount and type of oil carried by the tanker, the fuel carried by both ships, and how much of that, if any, has entered the water." Well, these are the latest pictures that we can bring to you from
on accident. Smiley face,
East,
smiley face,
where you can see
heart.
there
Happy Monday.
ambulances. I think you're good. Might have been by accident. Somebody, I don't know, who knows? But you're good. I'm just saying in general. Anybody just message me if you have any issues. I'll just unblock you. But happy Monday. Start off to the week. Thank you so much for the 41 months, Chaos. Title is extremely misleading. That's apparently the terminology that people are using. That's apparently the title that the media is calling it. It's casualties. It's people that got injured. I stubbed my toe. I'm a casualty. Y'all made the American language. That wasn't me. Y'all come up with all kinds of pronunciations for words that don't make no sense. The way I was taught to pronounce when I was a kid in school. You know, this letter's silent, that letter's silent. They're calling it casualties. Look, that's what they call it. I didn't make it up. They call that shit casualties. That's the English language. That's the definition, apparently. The title says dead. Oh, you got to refresh the page. Back out and come back. Refresh the page. There'd be all kinds of people that do horrible shit streaming. I made a mistake and I corrected it, and you guys are like on my ass about it. You don't tell the other streamers any of this shit. All kinds of wild shit that people do. I corrected it and I changed the title. You might have to back out and come back. I got them telling them, making up stories and all kinds. Nobody says nothing. Thousands of people watching. Me, every little thing. My Twitter's down. My Twitter's down too. I don't know what's going on with Twitter. Casualties. We're all casualties, apparently. Casualties. I learned that yesterday and today, I guess. Mel tornado hit Florida. I saw something about a tornado. Oh, really? Are they hard on Lookner? It is confusing, though. I'll give you that. I was confused too by it. I was confused. I thought it meant dead. That's why I put dead when I first started the live stream. I put dead because I thought that's even though yesterday I kind of learned that a little bit when I posted a video, because some people were like, they all survived. Why are you putting casualties? And so this morning I was out, like I literally rushed back to the house, and the first thing I was told was like, oh, it's casualties. So in my head, I'm like, okay, dead. And then people were like, oh, you're clickbaiting. And so I pulled up the article, and it said the casualties are brought on shore, and they're chilling, eating burgers and shit. I'm like, what? Huh? So I changed the title to Casualties. I wasn't really trying to go off, but I understand it. But I was confused too. It's weird. I think it is a little weird, but. All right, well, I guess that's it. I mean, if we'll see what today brings. If there is some type of update, whenever I come back later, I'll just update it. Like if there's, so far I haven't heard of any confirmed deaths, just casualties that are chilling. They did say there was some people missing though. So the one ship that said everybody's accounted for, I don't know about the other one. The Immaculate that said everybody's accounted for, I don't know about the other ship. So we'll update it later. See, it seems like it's kind of like under control. I thought too, Alexandria. That's what I thought too. Schlong bowled me over. Good. All right, guys. I'll catch you later. We'll see what today brings. All right, bye. Love you. Bloop, bloop.